Hello, can we ask you to take your seats? Ladies and gentlemen, hello, hello, can we ask you to take your seats? May we ask you to take your seats? Thank you. May we ask you to take your seats? Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, may we ask you to take your seats? Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, so we're now settling down. Excellent. And remember, we're all wearing name tags, huh? So I can start calling names. So, thank you all so much. The Race to Resilience is a global campaign to empower vulnerable communities with the ambitious goal of building resilience for 4 billion people by 2030. It mobilizes businesses, cities, investors, and civil society to protect the most vulnerable communities, ensuring that people are at the heart of climate action, driving solutions that safeguard lives and livelihoods. Currently, the campaign has, any guesses for how many partners? Yes. How many? The campaign has 39 partners working with more than 700 members across 164 countries. Partners include subnational governments, coalitions bringing together 86 cities and 81 regions, participating through Cities Race to Resilience and Regions Adapt. Collectively, the partners are committing today to increase the resilience of 3.2 billion people. And partners are working to implement these commitments. Currently, more than 2 billion people are covered by action plans, which is really, really exciting. So today's session, we're going to spotlight leadership within the Race to Resilience community, driving local leadership as a pillar for building an ambitious global resilience agenda. And we are going to engage you. So your homework for today is to join the campaign and determine what you are doing to help support us in this race to resilience. So this is very much an action-oriented session today because you are going to take action following this conversation. Yes? Yes. No. No. Remember, you are wearing name tags. I can start calling names. Yes? All right, I like it. All right, so we are going to start with the very dynamic and absolutely entertaining director of SPARK, the SPARK and ROOH initiative, and my fellow Race to Resilience ambassador, Ms. Sheila Patel. Welcome, Sheila. Yes. And Sheila has 7 minutes, so when you see me approaching Sheila on the podium, her 7 minutes are up.
I don't know how many of you are waiting for your lunch. So I've just come from an amazing discussion in which we're all looking at how we can acknowledge, celebrate, and transform the lives of people who live informally in cities. Our champion, Razan, has taken this up as a personal and organizational commitment of her presidency as the ambassador and champion to say that both the present 1 billion people who live informally and the anticipated almost 2 billion people who will come as climate refugees to cities have to have resilient solutions to survive not only from their own investment and their own knowledge, but must come out of transformational change in the way local, national, and global institutions look at them. Because presently, they are invisible, they are illegal, and they are ignored. And so a very important part of this process is to have large numbers of poor people, especially women living informally, to believe that their voice, their agency, and their investments are seen as the center of the transformation we are looking for, and that we don't treat them like charity cases at whom we throw a little bit of money as little philanthropic support, but that they are structurally invested in and are seen as important contributors to the production of resilience, not only for themselves, but for the cities in which they live. And so we look for a range of such networks of communities, and that's what we did in this earlier session. We were talking about people who are waste pickers, we're talking about people who are fisher folk, we're talking about people who are in different vulnerable communities, who get organized, who get a voice, and who are able to engage professionals, private sector, public sector, mayors, in order to produce a new strategy and solution. The work that I do, along with a whole lot of networks, is to take the concept of what we call roof over our heads as a symbol of defining what constitutes a resilient home, a resilient community. And it starts with acknowledging what communities and individual households bring to this solution, and then looks at ways by which those who are committed to support and assist them begin to improve the materials that they can have, the financial mechanisms by which they get access to more money. The people who help them design and construct have new ways to produce solutions, and that we can measure this transformation. One of the partners that we have from whom we learn a lot is Build Change. We talked about this 3 years ago when we met at the World Economic Forum, and we have many, many more partners. And so we look at all of you from whichever space you come from, whether you work with urban communities, rural communities, indigenous communities. We need to work together to produce simple but powerful processes by which this resilience becomes a part of every household, every neighborhood, and that we cope with this global challenge that we are not going to be able to fill of 1.5. So we're going to face a lot of traumas before we can get change. So I hope you all play a role in some campaign or the other, champion that process, invest in it, contribute to it. And those of you who want to come and work with me, let me know. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant, and thank you so much, Sheila. That was a lovely intervention and call to action. All right, so now we have a panel discussion moderated by me, and I would like to ask Mr. Benoit Charette, Minister of Environment, the Fight Against Climate Change, Wildlife and Parks, Province of Quebec, Canada. Minister. Elizabeth Hausler, who already got the shout out from Sheila from Build Change, CEO and founder. Sarah Omi, and a lovely lady, Gloria. Claudia from the Global Alliance, who will be translating for her. And Owen Gao, Deputy Director, Extreme Heat Resilience Alliance. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful and welcome panelists. So we're really delighted to have you here with us today. And my first question will be for our minister. And we're really, really delighted. I know what a busy schedule you have this week. The fact that you'll be here with us, we really appreciate it. So how is the province of Quebec supporting its local and indigenous communities in implementing solutions to better adapt to climate change and strengthen their resilience?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to share the podium with these dear colleagues. In fact, the local municipalities are the one facing day after day the impacts of the climate change. The reality of the climate changes are lived through the local government, so that's why it's as much important to work with them. Merci. And for those who speak French, sometime you will be able to help me find my words. So be aware when I'm asking for a kind of translation. But in fact, we did elaborate with the municipalities different initiatives. And the first thing was to be sure that they know what they are facing as a threat. How they can build their own climate change plan, how they can be able to realize that plan also. So that's what we did over the last year. So every regional municipalities received help to evaluate their risk, to elaborate their plan, and now they have the money to realize partially their plan. It's fundamental because the local municipalities are our first partners in the fight against climate change, but also our first partners when it's time to talk about adaptation also. So it's a major plan that we presented a few months ago, and it works. Every regional municipalities raise their hand to say we want to participate. So they receive the first money to evaluate their risk, and after that they will be able to realize with the support of the government of Quebec. But we won't be able to face the adaptation reality, to face also the climate change crisis if we don't support our municipalities. So it's a major step, and I think it will help significantly the population in Quebec, because over only the 2 last years, we faced severe flooding. We faced also wildfire as we've never experienced before. So it's on a local level, so it's important to help them.
Yeah, absolutely, and adaptation is such a locally based, method of protection.
Maybe just it's not only giving them money; it's also help them with capacity building. That's the word I was searching, and I almost forgot to pronounce this important. And that's the base of this partnership, to help them be better by capacity building. Thank you.
Yes.
Merci.
Wonderful. And this is one of the things that we talk a lot about in the Caribbean, that is so often that there is either capacity building or funding, rarely ever a combination of the two, which is really the secret sauce in being able to implement the changes and to actually build the capacity. So now on to Elizabeth. I'm really delighted to hear from you about how can locally led, community-driven construction practices and techniques be scaled to enhance resilience in vulnerable regions, especially in the face of increasing natural disasters. What do local communities play? What role do local communities play in shaping these solutions?
Yeah, thank you. But I think they need bundled financing plus technical assistance capacity building, basically just what you said. So, hi everyone, it's great to be here. I'm Elizabeth Hausler. I'm the CEO and founder of Build Change. It's a 20-year-old social innovator in the field of disaster resilient housing. And we've been shifting power to the people for 20 years. So enabling homeowners, mostly women-led households, to rebuild better housing after disaster and to strengthen housing before disaster. And from doing that, we've helped over 1.3 million people, and we have helped to protect $5 billion of housing assets. So $5 billion of housing assets that are better protected from loss. And doing this engaging local communities and working with local homeowners is the key. It absolutely has to be done this way. It's kind of a complex phrase that I'm about to say, homeowner-driven, conditional cash, plus technical assistance. That's what works, and that's what we need. So we're talking about putting the decision-making power in the hands of the people. So they decide the building materials, they decide where the windows and doors go, they decide where is their toilet, right? They make the decisions. We're talking about shifting the power and using a decision equity model rather than a sweat equity model. We've used this around the world. It's popular in post-disaster and prevention, and it works. It has to be done this way. But you may not get the result that you may want, right? You know, we've seen cases where someone wants to promote earth buildings and maybe they just don't work in the local environment. Someone wants to promote wood buildings, but concrete is more locally available. And so there's a challenge and opportunity sometimes to not make resilience and sustainability quite at odds with each other, but to really look at what do the people want? What do the people who live in those houses want from their house?
Oh, brilliant. And one more time, homeowner-driven,
Conditional cash plus technical assistance. So it's what you're saying before, a capacity building plus funding. Both of those things have to be there and done in a way that puts that decision-making power in the hands of the people.
Yeah, and you know, it seems like such a no-brainer, but it's not nearly implemented
Right, Sheila?
enough. Yeah. All right. So, Sarah, really excited to hear from you. So, from your experience as a leader of Indigenous women's movement, what are the most effective ways to ensure that Indigenous knowledge is not only recognized but also integrated into global resilience strategies? How can we ensure that adaptation and resilience efforts are led by the wisdom of Indigenous voices?
Evarikevara, Humara Itea. Buenas tardes, hermanos y hermanas, en mi lengua emberá. Vengo del pueblo emberá de Panamá y quiero agradecerle por la invitación ante este espacio que nos permite también seguir visibilizando nuestras voces desde nuestros conocimientos y desde nuestros saberes como mujeres indígenas en la contribución y sobre todo a la mitigación de los efectos del cambio climático. Y para nosotras es importante que se puedan seguir fortaleciendo la participación más de los verdaderos guardianes del bosque, de las mujeres y sobre todo en fortalecer la gobernanza de los territorios que nos permite seguir asegurando nuestros conocimientos tradicionales y sobre todo en búsqueda del reconocimiento y garantía de los derechos de los pueblos indígenas plena y efectivamente en todos los espacios de diálogo, de negociación y que nos permitan sobre todo ser escuchados, ya que los conocimientos tradicionales son una de las soluciones de buenas prácticas para poder salvar a la madre tierra.
First of all, Sarah would like to say good afternoon to all of you brothers and sisters in her native language. Sarah is an Embera people from Panama, and she's very grateful for this space because it's giving visibility to the voices of indigenous peoples, and giving the visibility of voices of indigenous women is also a way to maintain alive the traditional knowledge that is so important for the mitigation of climate change. It is also very important as a reply to the question when it comes to face the resilience challenges to strengthen the participation of indigenous women in the global fora. That means also make the voices of the territory being listened, and that is at the end what will keep the traditional knowledge alive. And apart from maintaining the traditional knowledge and a part of the protection of traditional knowledge, it is important to protect the human rights of indigenous peoples, and also to include with effective participation indigenous peoples in the dialogues and negotiations around climate, because at the end traditional knowledge equals good practices.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we should applaud that. Come on, man. Brilliant. All right, Owen. So given the increasing threat of extreme heat, how can we prioritize resilience building measures in urban areas where vulnerable populations are disproportionately affected? What are some of the practices for ensuring that we have heat-related adaptation measures that are both inclusive and equitable?
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation, and it's a huge question, so I'm going to try to tackle it quickly. So my name is Owen Gao. I'm a Deputy Director at the Armstrong Resilience Center focused on extreme heat, but I'm here representing the Extreme Heat Resilience Alliance, which is a 60-plus member coalition of organizations including Build Change, the Red Cross, the Rockefeller Foundation, and others, and working internationally. And so I think first to address your question, I want to use a framework that my colleague Lenio Miravilli, the Global Chief Heat Officer for UN Habitat and the Armstrong Resilience Center uses, which is awareness, preparedness, and redesign. And it starts from the basic concept that heat is cross-cutting, it's cross-sectoral, and so it needs to be addressed. First, making sure that everyone understands that heat is an issue. People understand what they can do to keep themselves and others safe. Second, preparedness. Do communities, community organizations, and city government agencies have systems in place to respond to heat waves, both chronic and sudden onset heat waves? And then finally, redesign. The fact that our cities and our neighborhoods aren't really fit for purpose in today's world of increasing heat. So how do we redesign buildings, redesign cities, neighborhoods to be ready for increasing temperatures of today and the future? And then to your question on outreach, I would just say we work with a network of chief heat officers, which is a new governance role focused specifically on heat in cities. And one thing we've seen the chief heat officers do that has been really effective is they reach out to communities before they start their projects, of course, with surveys or focus groups, but they don't just do a one-time outreach of one survey or one set of going around and knocking doors. It's sustained outreach throughout the project to make sure that it's meeting the needs of the people who they're trying to serve, that it is not running into any barriers that were unexpected. And so that kind of sustained outreach is really important to making sure projects are focused on heat resilience are successful.
Wonderful, and thank you so much, Owen. All right, so Minister, you talked about this methodology of empowering communities to develop these plans, providing the funding. Is that just straight grant funding, or what sort of innovations in this financing has been provided to help these communities to develop these plans and the execution?
We've been talking over the years about put a price on carbon. I think it's the first step to achieve a real plan over the fight against climate change. So we did put a price on carbon a few years ago, and we also link our strategy with our main partner, which is the state of California. So we have a common market, carbon market, and it works fine. Through this market, we collect few billion of dollars over the years, and every penny of this carbon market is invest in different programs. So the one I was talking about a few minutes ago with the local governments is totally financed through this carbon market. So it's for the coming years, we talk about it's around $500 million only to help the municipalities realize their own plans, and I don't count the other initiatives to support the municipalities. So first, put a price on carbon. This market for us is our main tool, and this is a way to finance our initiatives. But I was talking about the local governments in Quebec, but with this same market, we also help communities around the world. We put in place a program a few years ago about helping. It's a kind of international solidarity to help small communities to improve their own resilience also. So we put a lot of money in this program also, and it's good for the local governments or the municipalities in Africa, for example, in the Caribbean also. But it's also good for our own people, because it's a way to develop a new expertise, and they are able to share their expertise with the municipalities or local groups in West Africa, for example, or in the Caribbean. So financing through the carbon market, it's good for the municipalities in Quebec, but it's also good for our partnerships around the world, because again, the climate change is a challenge for all of us, no matter where we are. And if we can share our expertise and help elsewhere, it's a way of reaching our common goal.
Thank you so much, and I love the concept of the radical collaboration that is taking place with other regions and other jurisdictions. I'm going to just quickly jump to Sarah, if that's okay. You know, indigenous communities, as much as you are here and representing your community, there are barriers that are being faced to accessing direct funding for resilience efforts. How can the public and private sector support you and unlock these financial resources for indigenously led adaptation efforts?
Es una pregunta muy interesante, porque cuando nos preguntan cuáles han sido las barreras, pues son múltiples las barreras para el acceso al financiamiento, y más cuando se habla financiamiento para salvar a nuestra madre tierra. Y este es un factor que tiene muchas limitantes cuando justamente hablan de fortalecer las capacidades de los pueblos indígenas. Y está pues lo vemos como un problema discriminatorio cuando dicen que los pueblos indígenas no cuentan con las capacidades de poder administrar los recursos, pero somos los guardianes de los bosques que hemos administrado milenariamente los bosques de nuestros territorios, le estamos brindando el oxígeno que necesita nuestra madre tierra. Estamos contribuyendo con nuestros conocimientos, mantener el equilibrio, pero también para esto se necesitan crear políticas integrales que permitan el acceso más cercano hacia los pueblos indígenas, hacia las mujeres. Existen muchos requisitos burocráticos para poder accesar a estos fondos. Se tienen, en este caso, los invitamos a las ONG, a las organizaciones pues, de cooperación internacional, a los gobiernos. No nos pueden tratar a nosotros como una ONG o un gobierno, porque todos ellos tienen mecanismos de cómo hacerlo funcionar. Y en el caso nuestro, como pueblos indígenas, tenemos que buscar ese equilibrio o ese punto o esa herramienta que nos permita justamente accesar a estos fondos, y que no solamente escuchando a los liderazgos de la Alianza Global de Comunidades Territoriales, hemos creado por eso un mecanismo de acceso a financiamiento directo que se llama la plataforma de Chandia, y en el caso de Mesoamérica, un fondo territorial mesoamericano para que llegue e impacte directamente a solucionar nuestras necesidades, porque somos nosotros quienes conocemos la problemática que existen dentro de nuestros territorios, y es allí donde necesitamos acortar esa gran brecha para poder asegurar a que se respeten y se nos garanticen nuestros derechos plena y efectivamente en todo el contexto que se busca justamente a buscar la reparación que necesita el planeta.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sorry. So this is a very interesting question for Sarah, also for myself, because there are multiple barriers and multiple limits when it comes to access direct financing for the territories. However, indigenous peoples, indigenous communities, they really need help to support and protect Mother Earth. And in this case, we feel, as indigenous communities, very often feel some sort of discrimination when we are speaking about capacity building, capacity strengthening, because at some point it can be understood as if indigenous peoples are not able to steward and administrate their own resources. However, indigenous peoples have been the stewards of the territories for millennia. From ancestral time, they know how to use the land so the territories will keep the oxygen for Mother Earth, and also use the balance with traditional knowledge. That means that we really need support to create and integrate policies that will allow access of indigenous peoples and indigenous women to direct financing. Also, we need help to simplify bureaucracy. This is really a call to action to all stakeholders, like governments, donors from the private sector, the public sector. Indigenous peoples are not a big NGO that can deal with all types of bureaucracy. So we really need to develop new tools to access direct financing. The Global Alliance of Territorial Communities has a solution for that, that is the own platform for direct financing that is called Shandia, that unites the regional funds of all territories members of the Global Alliance, like the Mesoamerican Territorial Fund that works for the Mesoamerican region that Sara is from. And that will help lead the solutions and finance the solutions in the territories, because indigenous peoples know the problem. As indigenous peoples and local communities have been living in their communities for a long time. They know the problems, so they also know the solutions. And they also need support of their human rights, because that will be the way to protect Mother Earth.
Thank you so much. So Elizabeth, you know, we are used to getting these services for free from the indigenous communities, and it is time for us to have a call to action. And I feel like you have a particular call to action to close us out, because we've run out of time, for the private sector as to how do we get this moving?
Yeah, the private sector has to do can and has to do so much more and take more of the risk. The people who are out in the front lines living in disaster vulnerable housing, they take risks every day. They have already invested so much in their home. We need to bring a little bit more investment to make these buildings safer. So I think the private sector needs to do more to incentivize reducing risks before the next disaster. So create incentive where you get an insurance premium rebate if you strengthen your roof or tie it down. Create incentives that really, really work for the people and meet them where they are. This is how we're all going to work together to create change.
Wonderful, wonderful, and thank you so much, our esteemed panelists, for your time. I wish I had more time with you. There's so many more questions I'd like to ask each of you and be able to I'm getting so many lovely notes. Yes, really wish I could spend some more time with you. Thank you so much. And we next have two of our partners who are going to be making some announcements. Please thank our panelists. All right, so next we have Constantino Ayuka from Acción Andina. And Acción Andina is the newest partner to join the Race to Resilience as partner number 39, as we had announced earlier, working on restoration of native Andean forests and supporting local and indigenous communities. Next, we also have Andrew Potts from Climate Heritage Network, who just confirmed their recommitment to the Race to Resilience, please, yes. Having secured funding to ensure that by 2030, no less than 200 million people from vulnerable groups and communities will directly or indirectly be made more resilient to climate risks as a result of new and existing culture-based strategies. So, please, welcome, gentlemen. All right, so I'll start with Acción Andina. Please tell us about your commitment to Race to Resilience.
I'm going to stand up because I prefer to talk in this way. Thank you so much for the invitation. I want to start telling to everybody, please understand, when you say communities, it's not 5 folks or 12 folks. the minimum size of one community is 45 families. That means 150 people. In that way, it's difficult to have commitments easily because many times the institutions fail. It's easier to say, okay, we have a bad luck to 5 members, but try to do, at the moment, Action Andina is helping directly to 35,000 people. Action Andina is working along all the Andes, 7,000 kilometers of mountains in South America. What we learned, every time when we talk with the local communities and native communities, say, what you want from the conservation of the model world? And everybody answer immediately, respect. Oh my goodness, what else more? We want to talk. We want to be listened. And if it's possible, we want to teach. Fantastic. What else more? Don't you know, we are tired of being just the front page of the magazine. We don't want to be just like a guinea pigs. We don't want to be just part of the videos. We want to be part of the solution. That means we want to see the benefits of the conservation. Action Andina, hearing all that, we started all this program just based on just reviewing what the history teaches us. I want to tell you that in South America, in the age 880, happens a huge climate change that kills almost the pre-Inca cultures along all the Pacific coast. And the remainings climb up, and what happened? They start the biggest and grandiose Inca empire. But these guys, they don't do it what we are doing right now. Sit down and create the, we are adapting to the climate change. Bullshit, sorry. Also, these guys, they don't start to be just talking between them and crying. No, they practice the perfect resilience. I started to talk and call positive resilience. Why? If they suffer of water, you can visit Cusco, where I am coming from Peru, and you can see still the water canals and these aqueducts still bringing water from what happens 1,000 years ago. You can see the terraces still producing the best corn that you call the Inca corn. Still, the terraces are producing the same that was 1,000 years ago. They managed the climb, and they did a massive, big restoration program. And probably you can say, I don't think it's crazy. How is the scientific support of that? We did a botanical historical research, and we saw in the year 1000 appears seeds of alders and other things, massive. That means somebody's bringing that, and they're doing restoration. With all that details, we said, okay, we don't need to invent nothing. Let's rescue what these guys has been practicing and doing 1,000 years ago. And what is the main tool? Communal work. Aini Minga. That means all working together for a common goal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Communal work. And now I'll ask Andres about his recommitment and his fundraising.
Sure. Oh, there. Hi, my name is Andrew Potts, and I'm from the Climate Heritage Network. We are a network of about 500 organizations around the world who are focused on the socio-cultural dimensions of adaptation and resilience. Our motto is unlocking the power of cultural heritage, art, and creative sector to help people imagine and realize low-carbon, just, climate-resilient futures. I don't know if it surprises you or not that culture organizations are here today. It does surprise many people in climate policy and climate finance. There's a big focus on technology, on finance, enablers of climate action, but the cultural, social enabler dimension is often overlooked. But that has not been the case with the high-level champions and in the race to resilience. It's always been a home for the culture community. The selection of the Climate Heritage Network as a partner in the Race to Resilience was a real breakthrough for us. David, you were there, you will recall. But we have been honestly a little bit slow to capitalize on that. We're sort of like the dog that caught the bus. You were talking about cultural professionals who normally aren't mobilized for climate action work. You're talking about a sector that is often not recognized in climate plans. And so it has taken us a bit of time to capitalize on our Race to Resilience campaign. But today I am here to preview an announcement that we will be making tomorrow. I'm breaking a press embargo, but I couldn't resist the chance to do this in the presence of people like Madam Sheila and Madam Razan and you all. Tomorrow we'll be announcing a grant from the Mellon Foundation of $1.25 million to the Climate Heritage Network, plus plus a matching grant of $125,000 from the National Geographic Society, and about half of that is devoted to two projects we are taking forward on adaptation and resilience. The first is, of course, our flagship Race to Resilience Culture Campaign, RTRC. This campaign asks cultural institutions, cultural actors, but also cities and local governments to commit to expanding culture-based resilience strategies. These are projects that focus on social networks, that focus on the valorization of plural knowledge systems, that focus on ancestral wisdom, that focus on adaptive learning, culture-based resilience strategies. We will be announcing tomorrow that program will now be professionally staffed, redoubling our efforts, and I can also preview for you that we very happily are going into a partnership with ICLEI. ICLEI USA and ICLEI Africa will be the lead partners for this campaign. ICLEI is a founder of our network. If you think about your community, the cultural institutions, the libraries, the museums, the schools, the heritage sites, many of these are owned, operated, funded by local government, and so local government is a major player in the culture sector. And so thank you to ICLEI for leading this new campaign, redoubling of our Race to Resilience Culture campaign. The second activity we will be funded with these grants is something we call HACA, the Heritage Adapts to Climate Alliance. This campaign has been formed to capitalize on the culture and heritage elements of the Global Goal on Adaptation, the UAE Framework for Global Climate Resilience, which contains an express thematic target on cultural heritage. And so very quickly, 1 minute, why should you care and how can you help? So when I say culture-based resilience, when I say culture in the Global Goal on Adaptation, you may or may not have an image of what that is. In the Global Goal on Adaptation framework, what are the culture provisions? One that talks about equitable engagement with indigenous peoples and local communities. One that talks about the need to focus on the values and attitudes that support transformative resilience. One that focuses on the need to use indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge to guide the design of resilience infrastructure. These are the provisions that we will be championing and trying to make sure are robustly elaborated in the GGA process. And I hope many of you will have heard concepts that are aligned with your own efforts. Second, with the Race to Resilience Culture Campaign, here we're really asking local actors local authorities, local actors to support social and cultural strategies to build resilience, ones that are often overlooked. In the session on informality a few minutes ago that Sheila mentioned, one thing that came out, what are the assets of informal communities and informal settlements? Culture. These are cultural powerhouses, and how do we leverage that asset, that power, to build resilience of communities? So if these topics are sounding familiar, if these are aligned with your own efforts, please consider joining us at the Climate Heritage Network with HACA and with Race to Resilience. And thank you to the Mellon Foundation and to National Geographic Society, the Preserving Legacies Project, which is the lead on HACA. And we hope we will see you a lot more these days with this redoubling of our commitment. Thank you.
All right, let us thank our Race to Resilience partners for their commitments and recommitments. We now invite Her Excellency Razan Al Mubarak to give us a few remarks. Thank you, gentlemen.
Please stay on stage. I feel alone. Hello?
Yep.
Hello? Hello? Good afternoon. Maybe I use another one. Yeah, that one works. So let me start by thanking the Resilience Hub for curating this fantastic Resilience Day here at the Climate Week in New York City. As the home of really the Race to Resilience campaign over the past 4 years, this hub has ensured adaptation and resilience remains on the top of the climate agenda. So really, thank you. Thank you to the Resilience Hub, and thank you to its managing directors that have continuously and consistently supported this very important topic, and continuing the tradition of really carving out inclusive spaces to push forward, oftentimes, challenging conversations to ensure that we move the needle towards an equitable, a nature positive, a cultural transformation towards climate resilience and adaptation worldwide. And we see the impacts today. Maybe not perhaps at the scale or the speed, but the needle, I believe, is moving. At COP28, we were able to ensure, for example, that the unusual suspects not only had a seat on the table, but had platforms to engage on real issues facing the majority of the world's population that are facing climate impacts, not tomorrow, but today. And as we've just heard over the past few hours in the Resilience Hub, we know that the challenges are vast, but we also know, as you just mentioned, that the solutions are within our reach. And they are found at the local level, where people are living, where people are striving, and that are thinking of solutions despite the challenges that they're facing. We also know that resilience building is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It requires adaptation strategies that are locally driven, culturally informed, and supported by strong and inclusive governance systems. And I'd like to take this opportunity, particularly that I'm sitting next to you, to warmly welcome Acción Andina as the newest Race to Resilience partner. As you've heard, this is a grassroots, community-based initiative working across South America to protect native high Andean forests, aiming to restore 1 million hectares by 2030. Again, on all of our behalf, if I may, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all the Race to Resilience partners for your continued leadership in driving resilience worldwide, putting people and nature at the forefront. I know that we already need to celebrate that we're covering 2 billion people in our action plans collectively, bringing us closer to our ambitious goal of increasing the resilience of 4 billion people by 2030. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We need to continue. We need to continue to walk the line. We need to continue to be consistent. We need to continue to be collaborative. And we continue to communicate that resilience and adaptation is a must and is fundamental to climate action. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosanna. You have been such a shining light of leadership in this campaign. We are honored to have worked with you, and certainly the example that you've set has been such a beautiful example of leadership and wholeheartedness. Thank you. All right, now I introduce Jorge Gastumendi. I hope I haven't butchered your name. From the Senior Director of Atlantic Council's Adrian Arsht Rockefeller Foundation Center. Okay, wonderful. I'll show you what they put.
That's fine.
All right, wonderful. Jorge has a wonderful announcement to make, and I think one that you'll be really excited about.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
So first of all, I'm speaking on behalf of the Resilience Hub to close the portion of the day for the Resilience Hub today. In the afternoon, we have a full-on set of events organized by the Global Resilience Partnership, who is a partner with the Atlantic Council, where I work, and a set of other actors that I'll mention briefly. You know, the International Center for Climate Change and Development, ICAT, the Slam Dwellers International, South North, and Fundación Avina. And with them, and I can see my colleague David Howlett here, in 2020 we were picked to devise and then launch and lead the Race to Resilience that we just talked and heard that, you know, we have 2 billion people as part of the tracking progress. We set out our sights at 4 billion people, half of the world population by 2000. Shanaz, good to see you. And so we've been in this journey for the past 4 years. It's been wonderful to have partners like Sheila, Shanaz, David, of course, all our colleagues at the Global Resilience Partnership. And this is, as I said in the morning, if some of you were here, this is a dream come true. We created this space to bring the community, frontline community, actors, practitioners to mobilize action around climate resilience, to have a home for all those actors or for all those voices, to be a window to the world of all the things that, wonderful things that everybody's doing around those actions, people that don't have other option but to adapt to climate change, and they do it on a daily basis. And it's not that much about talking about money or numbers, they actually do it. And so we wanted to bring that space. And the announcement that I wanted to make today is that I've, as of recently, become the senior director. So I'm leading the center for the Atlantic Council that is focused on climate resilience. As you've seen over the past 4 years, we have climate change at the heart of what we do as Atlantic Council. So we have decided to bring the name at the heart of our name. So now we're going to be the Atlantic Council's Climate Resilience Center, starting today. And we wanted to announce that. Thank you. So climate change is part of is our mission, and we're moving forward, double down on the effort, double down with the partnerships. I see so many friendly faces of years that we've been working on climate change and trying to advance this profile and elevating the need to do more on this. And so that was it for us, for the announcement. Thanks for the kind introduction. And I'm gonna move away from you, between you and lunch. We're moving into lunch. I don't know I think it's in the 4th floor. So we need to go one floor down. And all welcome. Thanks for coming this morning. And as I said, more to come in the afternoon with GRP. So thank you so much, and good afternoon.